But yes, that's right. Thailand seems to be the new focus of fleeing Israelis. However, just like Cyprus and some other places now, Israelis are now facing scrutiny in southern Thailand hotspots where they seem to be residing. In the postcard perfect Surat Thani, home of the Ko Fanagan and Ko Sumai, a local storm has now gathered over the past month. What started off as quiet complaints about culture clashing has now swelled into open anger. Can you imagine that? If history and recent history proves anything right, I would imagine that the Israelis have now gone to Bangkok and have tried to rid the national cuisine of rice and try to make it matzo ball. And if you disagreed with that, you're called anti-Semitic, I would imagine. Yes, if history serves anything right. Well, this is quite a culture clash, to say the least. Residents have now accused some Israeli nationals of breaking laws, ignoring traditions, and creating an Israeli settlement. Yes, they're very adverse to anything that's not part of their lineage, because they're the chosen ones, and you're just a little peons, stepping stones, and tissue paper. Well, as far back as October 2025, and October 14th to be exact, the provincial governor ordered a sweeping probe into illegal foreign-run businesses, with a focus on claims that Israeli investors are now buying up farmland through Thai fronts to build what detractors describe as an emerging Jewish enclave. So this is what's happening in Thailand. Imagine the beautiful beaches of Thailand. And you want to see the majestic beauty? Yes, that's what they want. They want the beachfront property. And ask everyone in Gaza, and they'll tell you that's true. This is how they do it. So now the officials have more to say now. Not only are they creating these so-called Jewish enclaves, now Thai officials, proud of their hospitalities, say they will enforce the rules, a move that has sparked fierce debate over tourism, sovereignty, and the rise in anti-Semitic sentiment. I told you it was coming. I told you it was coming. Just give it a minute. Now the spark came as the Israeli arrivals surged. Now immigration data has now counted, get this, 4,030 Israelis in the province of Surat Thani, just as early as October of this year, now including 2,548 over there in the other province of Ko Fanagan, surprising some traditional European markets. Now, the visa-free entry for Israelis, there you go, it's visa-free for Israelis. When I had to go to Thailand, no, I had to get a visa. I had to make sure I had written the whole thing. I never made it. This was 2 years ago. I was invited to be a keynote speaker at a huge event. My passport did not expire for like another month at that point. Could not, they would not let me in. But had I been from Israel and just a rude, total jerkimer from Tel Aviv.
Oh, come right in. What visa? Come on in. Want to buy some land? Tell me which Lady Thai boy you want to.
See? So yeah, the surge is real. The surge is real now. Now locals say the boom has now strained the island's environment and social order. Farmers and family-run operators claim that Israelis are buying something called nominee proxies to bypass foreign ownership rules, snapping up rice fields and coconut groves for villas and private resorts. Wow, what an opener. What an opener. Can't wait till the closer. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Real Deal Media's incredible original series, The Lounge, as tonight's season finale is Zionists versus the West. As you can see there, such a hot show. My glasses are getting steamy because that's the kind of content we have for you here tonight. I'm telling you, it's that big, that big. Yes, Zionists versus the West, as you can plainly see there. Make no mistake, everything from Albert Pike to the Netanyahus to the Scofield Bible to the Trump rubber hands to the 1800 Zionists to even the different maps within the Scofield Bible. Everything will be covered and no stone will be left overturned. You see how that is? Tonight, it is just that. For the season finale, we have assembled some of the greatest, sharpest, wittiest, historically sound minds that Real Deal Media could ever find. Yes, we have. And one of those minds joining me tonight is filmmaker and music critique here of the RDM Musical Critics, one of the RDM music guys himself, the one, the only Matthew Millan. Matt, welcome. Welcome.
Hey, great to see you, man.
Good to see you. Oh, we are just rolling here with the, not with the Zionists just yet. And also joining me, and joining us, I should say, is a man who is very, very well versed on the Scofield Bible, a man who has really lived up to Noah's Ark and really has done his best to repopulate the world, at least every Saturday morning. That's the one, the only Neil Bishop. Neil, good to see you.
Dean, you're alive, brother.
I am alive. We are alive together. Okay. So, guys, thank you for being here tonight as we are broadcasting live over there on The Real Dean Ryan on Facebook, as well as Dean Ryan TV and Rumble. Yes, we are. But after tonight, guys, I may be just blown off the interwebs altogether. It's going to be a controversial show.
I'm excited. I'm pumped, man.
Yeah. Good. And towards the end of tonight, we're going to be looking at the live chats, and we'll be asking inquiries as we get there. And before we get started here, I should ask both of you, and maybe I'll start with Matt, is Zionist versus the West. Well, Matt, when did you kind of start noticing the Zionist factor, if you will, and felt compelled to maybe speak out about that, just for starters here?
I think it was when probably in the late 90s, when in the early days of the internet, I came across a population census. I think it was an Ottoman Empire one in 1900 of Palestine. And it paints a very different picture than a land without a people for a people without a land, considering it was, over 90% Arab at the time. So, and that was, so the whole premise of a land without a people for a people without a land, I started getting very suspicious of. And
interesting.
That was a transformative moment. But I mean, I had skepticism before that though as well, to be honest, though. But that was
very good point. And Neil, like Matt and myself and many others, these are things that I did not learn about in high school. We were not told any of this about during the World War II chapters of the history class. So I can't say, unlike the new generation today, these are things that I've learned as an adult much later in life. How about yourself? When did you kind of start noticing things, if we can just begin there?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in kind of a subcategory of what we call Zionism now, but I didn't really know what Zionism was. Even as an adult, I didn't understand it. But I've always been skeptical of things and started waking up sometime around Sandy Hook stuff, really started waking up to what kind of weird matrix are we living in? And then by the time the COVID hit and that came upon us, I was fully awake to just that we're not living in reality. We're being taught falsehoods everywhere, and anything that's mainstream must be questioned. So that's when I started kind of questioning this narrative because I know we've been heavily involved in politics, and we started realizing firsthand how controlled our own politicians are by a certain Middle Eastern country. So I started reading books by Benjamin Friedman and others, and started looking at another side of history that I wasn't aware of. Didn't grow up, like you said, I didn't grow up, really understanding both sides of history. They say, right, it's the winners, those who win the war, that write the history books, so they can write whatever they want. But there's more than one side to this. And so that's really, honestly, I've hardcore started really studying. I've always read from the Scofield Study Bible anyway. I didn't even know who Scofield was. So just over the last few years, I really started, because I've always been a Bible student, but I didn't know like who all these commentators were and these Bible scholars and all these people that we just naturally refer to. And if you're a good Bible believing Christian, especially like a Baptist or something like that, you're going to have like a Scofield King James Version study Bible. And I didn't even know who Scofield was. So last couple of years, really for me, as far as this subject, the Israel subject, Middle East, and Scofield, things like that.
Now, when you say a certain country in the Middle East, are you talking about Abu Dhabi?
Yeah, I don't know if I can name it.
You're talking about Oman.
Right.
Yeah, I that's the first thing I was thinking about. Why is he talking about Abu Dhabi that way? What is wrong with him?
I'm not referring to Qatar. We'll put it that way.
Oh, okay. And we'll come back to Qatar at a later point, as you know. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to start and Matt's going to give us the lead here in a second. But let me talk about it first as I opine and begin my excursion on my own. Well, yes, tonight is the lounge, as now Zionist versus the West is in full play, as we're going to take you on a incredible journey here tonight. Yes, and I cannot wait. Well, what does it all start with? Well, it starts with Zionists in Europe. Yes, it does. Europeans have been really at odds with Zionists for quite some time, unbeknownst to me and many other people who've studied World War II, or were spoon-fed World War II, I should say. But what does that entail? Now, we know about the Bolsheviks, how they infiltrated Russia, World War I, a lot of confusion there. But even then, we don't really hear a lot about World War I. It's all about World War II for some reason. I can't, for the life of me, put that together. So right now, we're going to see a little clip here, and we're going to bring in Matt to really slam dunk it home, as the history of Jews and throughout Europe is one to be talked about. In fact, check this out here, and then we'll get Matt's take on it, as the history is really unfolding like never before, and nothing can stop it.
Of the Jewish people on a map. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict will be explained in a following video. The story begins in 750 BC, when the Near East was divided into many small kingdoms and city-states. They were wedged between the Assyrian Empire to the north and Egypt in the south. Among them was the Kingdom of Israel, whose people worshipped several gods, including Yahweh. In 722 BC, the capital Samaria fell to the Assyrian Empire. Part of the population then fled to the Kingdom of Judah and Jerusalem, but they would be followed by the Assyrian army as they continue their expansion towards the south. The region then remains under their control for a century, until the fall of Nineveh to the Babylonians. Egypt and Babylon would then compete for territories of the old empire, but the Babylonians quickly take over and project their power in the region. Jerusalem resists this new rule and rebels. The Babylonian army then returns to besiege and destroy the city. Much of the population is then moved to the capital. In 539 BC, the Achaemenid Persian Empire takes over Babylon. The new king authorizes a free passage for Judeans, prompting many to return to Jerusalem. They would then rebuild the city and organize the foundations of Jewish culture by building the Temple of Solomon and writing the Torah. In 334 BC, the ambitious young Macedonian king Alexander the Great set out with his army to conquer the known world. In just over 10 years, he rakes up a huge territory and builds many cities. But exhausted by conquest, he died at age 32 in Babylon without an heir of governing age. The empire was then divided by his generals into various Hellenic kingdoms. Judea came under the control of the Ptolemaic dynasty. A Jewish community settles in the new city of Alexandria, and the Torah is translated into Greek. Following a war against the Seleucid dynasty, Hellenic and Jewish culture developed friction to the point that one of the altars of the Temple of Solomon in Jerusalem was dedicated to the worship of Zeus. A traditionalist anti-Hellenic Jewish militia is organized and takes control of Jerusalem in 164 BC. The temple is restored and the kingdom.
Okay, I'm going to stop it there. As you can understand, there's a lot of kings and a lot of nomads. Let's get into it, Matt. That's kind of a very infancy historian and historical take on it all. But
Well,
to speed it up, how did what was Europe and the Jewish people like? And let's talk about where Zionism came into play here.
Well, first off, I just wanted to mention briefly that we have this strange idea that when an invading force comes in, that suddenly the whole population is just ethnically cleansed to somewhere else. That actually rarely happens in history. And so, like, for instance, the Palestinians we see today are the descendants, many of which were Jews who converted to Christianity or Islam later. So I just wanted to point that out first.
Very good.
Yeah.
So okay. So how did the Jews came from Ukraine? Is my understanding. Okay, they came from Ukraine. The Khazarians, a sector of the Judaism religion, and from my understanding, the Zionists was a Far East political faction of that movement.
No,
Tell me where I'm wrong.
Central Europe, Switzerland.
Okay,
Zionism,
tell me more about
but Zionism is a strange thing because it had many heads, and it just came together at the right time. But what we see as Zionism today, the fathers often agreed upon to be Theodor Herzl from the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Like, for instance, the first Zionist Congress was actually in Basel, Switzerland, I think in 1898. I could be wrong there, but it was around that time. So I just lost my train of thought.
Yes, you could see it growing throughout Europe, and there's a lot of adversity between the two groups.
But we need to get the baseline, or the basis of what was happening in Europe at the time. There were a series of pogroms, and particularly in Russia and Eastern Europe in the 1880s, pogroms against Jewish populations. So many of the early Zionists were actually in good faith trying to solve a serious problem with and also in Central and Western Europe, they were getting refugees from Romania, from Russia, from Ukraine because of these pogroms. So that also sparked a lot of anti-immigration feelings from even the established Jewish families, many of the established Jewish families in places like the United Kingdom or like England, who had been there for a very long time. So, but also remember, it was also in the context of colonial, this colonial settler movements, the empires, particularly look at the colony that was going on throughout the 19th century. So then what you end up having is, on one hand, you have many secular and atheist Jews who were very concerned with what was happening in Eastern Europe for very good reason. But you also had, the sparks of anti-Semitism, like if you guys are familiar with the Dreyfus affair in France, which is a great example of, even in France, where they didn't have the problems of the pogroms that they had, a patriotic officer who saw himself as French first, Albert Dreyfus, was always going to be looked on by the ruling class as a Jew first, which was very problematic because he considered himself a French patriot. And whereas you have, like, also in England too, that many of the established aristocratic Jewish families saw themselves as English first. So there was a serious problem with massacres happening, once again, particularly in Eastern Europe and Russia. But there was still a lot of anti-Semitism boiling in Central and Western Europe. Now, that's one aspect of it. You got to go back a little further and remember the Ottoman Empire was ailing. It was a dying empire, particularly in the 19th and in the 20th centuries. You had some very, you had two branches come into one in the 1840s, whereas the idea of bringing back, for one, like the dispensationalism, which I think was actually 1850s, but there were ideas like that from Neil can talk better on that, but the millenarians or the accelerationists were looking to bring the second coming of Christ, but also some English, the English power dynamics. Some of them wanted to also pick the pieces off the Ottoman Empire.
Let me ask you this question, because we hear anti-Semitism. It's changed so many definitions over the course of just a couple of years. What was the classical sense of that anti-Semitism back then? Because, you look at the Irish and what they endured by the British, just 100 years ago.
I mean, look, that's
how would you say?
These things are all related. Humans are very tribal in nature. And we look at characteristics that are different in other people, and then we shit on them. I mean, you see that quite often. And so anti-Semitism that's where, when you try to make it like a separate entity than other forms of racism, it kind of starts becoming a caricature of itself, I think, because there was severe prejudice and bigotry against Jewish people. And a lot of the irony is a lot of the stereotypes that were developed against Jewish people is because what Jewish people were limited to be able to do within those societies. So it was kind of.
What were those? Because a lot of it too was, masterpiece theater, entertainment.
In many places in Europe, they couldn't go to universities and things like that. And because usury was not frowned upon, they ended up, many of them, they saw that, in the rudimentary banking systems of medieval Europe, for instance. So, but it was also because of the prejudice against them that they were forced into that. And also a lot of these communities, they were forced into an identity, if that makes sense. So, but then also you had another interesting thing in the 19th century is this idea of nationalism. Really, the nationalism started really bursting forth in the 19th century to a different degree. And we started seeing, and once you see Jews as a nation, remember, it's a religion. Judaism's a religion. It's not a nation. It's a vast diaspora of a lot of different people. That's the thing. I mean, and that's Ashkenazis, not just Mizrahis, Sephardis, it's a vast diaspora of people.
And just due to time constraints, so now we have Jews throughout Europe. Let's talk about the Zionist faction and just who are the Zionists and how did that all come together, if we could.
Okay.
To understand.
Yeah. So first off, what I was saying too is that some of the elites started getting the idea, because this centers around the Ottoman Empire. That's pretty important. But the elite who were not Jews, they were generally Christians and Anglicans in particular in England, they started thinking about picking the pieces off the Ottoman Empire. Although for decades, the English stance was that the Ottoman Empire, they needed stability so it didn't create a world war, basically. Like, all these empires trying to pick off the pieces of the Ottoman Empire and go into war over each other. But there were early ideas of this in the 1840s, but from people like even suggesting Palestine, because it's the Holy Land. So that's just one element of it that was not related to the Jewish Zionism. It was together. And you got to look at Theodor Herzl first, as he was the father of Jewish Zionism. And he was actually agnostic about where they settled. there were a number of places they were looking at, which was like Madagascar, Angola. It was not just Palestine. And what's very interesting in a lot of what you see in their letters and stuff, most of them called it colonizing, whether it was colonizing Uganda, whether it was colonizing Madagascar, was colonizing Argentina, or was it colonizing Palestine? So, you know, the colonial endeavors, we were living in the age of colonialism, so it wasn't considered a bad thing. Now, a few of them showed concern about the people who actually lived there. And particularly at the beginning, and you know, the revisionist Zionists who came later showed a lot less concern. But up until Theodore Herzl's death, though, which was, I think, 1904, 1905, they were still debating on where to settle. You know, they were not everybody was sold on Palestine.
Interesting. Oh, okay. So now that kind of brings us down to the late 1800s, Neil, and that's going to bring us to, and it's all connected, everybody, as you'll find out, you'll see here. But that's going to bring us now to the Scofield Bible. Well, up until recently, you know, I've often wondered what's the big deal with some of these pastors and their love affair with Israel. I mean, I thought Mike Huckabee was just a bass player. All of a sudden, he's the biggest sycophant and the number one fan with a foam finger of everything Israel. I mean, it's just incredible. His mistress is Israel. His best friend is Netanyahu. And dare I say what Rabbi Shmuley truly is to someone like Huckabee. But what is it about? Well, up until recently, when Neil Bishop let the cat and the matzo ball out of the iron in the fire, I didn't really understand how pastors were learning their skill until it was told to me they learned from something called the Scofield Bible. Well, Scofield is the following here. He is this guy here. It's a reference Bible, is a Zionist interpretation of Bible scriptures. Did you know? Footnoted in modern English, written in 1909 by convicted felon Cyrus Scofield. Yes, it is. Who was financed by Jewish backers, they're saying, with bribes and all kinds of ordeals. The Bible was forced into Bible colleges, the pulpits of Christian ministers. The 20th century Christian beliefs the Bible is a powerful Zionist tool, they say, in the creation and support of Israel and the subjugation of the Christian religion into Zionism. Really? Well, tell me more here as we watch this little piece, and we'll get Neil's take on it after the fact. Check this out.
1909, the prestigious Oxford University Press published his reference Bible, a King James Bible filled with commentary and footnotes on the same page meant to explain the text. But interestingly, Scofield had no formal theological training to speak of, no seminary degree. In fact, Scofield was a pathological liar, a fraud, and a deadbeat who abandoned his family. And yet somehow, this guy was able to create one of the most influential books of the 20th century, a book that convinced generations of evangelicals that the return of the Jews to Palestine was a fulfillment of biblical prophecy.
Well, all the sentimental music aside, let's get down into the brass tacks of it all. Okay, Neil Bishop, tell us this Scofield story, because I am fascinated by it.
It's crazy. And you know, to what Matt was saying, it's really interesting because he's been talking about Palestine. Look up pre-1909 Bible maps. You're not going to see an area called Israel. You're going to see an area called Palestine. That's what it was called.
Just happen to have that right there.
Yeah, well, there you go. Well, pre-Scofield, that area was Palestine. So the reason that I mean, it's so important for so many reasons. I'll talk about it in a minute. But just to kind of coattail on what Matt was saying, who were the Palestinians at this time? And who were the Jews that were being ushered into this land? Who were they kicking out? Because there's some pretty interesting documented evidence that maybe the people they were actually taking the land from were more Jewish than the Jews who were taking the land. It's crazy when you think about it. And they were dark-skinned, which we've always assumed and believed, and I think it's accurate, that, Jews, specifically Sephardics, were dark skinned and they're probably from the actual lineage. But also think about this. How do we really know? Can you date your ancestry back 4,000 years, you guys? So what are we really fighting for here? Do we know that Bibi Netanyahu is an actual Jew? Well, I can tell you what he is. He's some sort of Russian, European, Ukrainian mix, probably, that has nothing to do with the biblical lineage of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Judah, David, on through the line. So who are we really supporting here? But let me back up here for a second. Oh man,
I'm sorry.
Happy
No, I don't know
Halloween.
what happened there.
I know it just
A glitch in the system.
Wow.
Sorry about that.
That was some cosplay you did right there.
Scofield is an interesting character. Now, if you're like me, you grow up reading the Scofield Bible. If you grow up in church, you have a Scofield Bible, and you just think of some guy that really liked the Bible and liked to write notes about it. For some reason, there's like more Scofield notes in the scripture than there's actually scriptures, and that's kind of odd. But I don't want to be clear. I'm not going to enter into, there's one of my favorite persons. I'm not going to enter into Scofield's motives. I don't know what his motives were, but I can tell you this. He has a sketchy history. I don't know if you knew this, but he spent some time in prison. Some people don't know that. He was in a railroad scam with a Jewish lawyer. It led to his imprisonment for a while. While he was in prison, he claimed to have converted to Christianity. He was a lawyer himself, but he started reading John Darby, and that's another big dispensationalist guy. And he claimed to get converted, and maybe he did. He also claimed to get his doctorate of divinity while he was in prison, and I'm not sure if that's true or not, but that's what he claimed. But he was a sketchy character in regards to his life being in prison. And also, he was a divorced man. He allegedly ran off with his mistress and ended up leaving her as well before his third person. I don't know if he married his mistress, so his second or third wife or whatever. But he was also very well connected. Now, he's purportedly a part of it's sort of a subgroup of the Illuminati called the Secret Six. If you guys have heard of that, but you can look it up. He became a protege of a guy who was also involved in that, named Samuel Untermeyer. That might ring a bell as well. Untermeyer had the ear of one Woodrow Wilson, which is really interesting. So they're shaping sort of this. What their desire was to bring in a new Israel under the Balfour Declaration, which if you guys haven't looked that up, you need to look up the Balfour Declaration. It's actually really simple. Go ahead. I'll take a breath. I'll take a breath.
Just real quick. Before Scofield, what were Christians using as like their biblical, itineraries at that time?
Yeah, most Christians were listening to their pastor. Most Christians were they were reading their Bible. I mean, there were other men, and Scofield wasn't the one that started Zionism. He was the one who basically made it popular in Christianity. But there was John Darby, who was a popular one at the time too. There were some other authors and big preachers. There was D.L. Moody and others who people were listening to. But for the most part, people didn't have like a systemized book in their hands where they could read and go, oh, Israel still needs to go back to their original land, because Scofield said that's what these scriptures mean.
Oh, okay. So
most
there
people
wasn't
before
really
that,
an
Dean,
industry. There wasn't an industry for pastors. Okay.
No, and it wasn't centralized. So everything, it was more localized, and people didn't have just one solid belief. There wasn't a mainstream Christian belief, except for the most part, people thought that Israel was a thing of the past as far as the fulfillment of biblical prophecy was concerned. They thought that already happened, which I still think there's a good case to say that that is probably actually what's true, and that the prophecies that people are believing in now, mainly based on the work of John Darby and Scofield, they are misleading people to think that Israel is still fulfilling Bible prophecy today.
Interesting. And I agree with Seth Black saying Woodrow Wilson, one of the worst presidents of all time. I concur, Seth. You couldn't have said it better. And we have Margaret.
The White House, man. I mean, that's
Yes.
King James Bible in every hotel. Now, I thought it was Gideon's Bible. Now, is
Which is-
Gideon the rival
Yeah,
of Scofield? Are they rivals like the mongrels and the Hells Angels?
I don't know that they're rivals, but Gideon's another division. And I would much prefer people, if they're going to read the Bible, to read Gideon's Bible, because they're not going to have all the notes in there and things like that. This is interesting too, though. Now, 1917 is an important date. Matt was talking about how the Ottoman Empire was under duress and having problems. That's a very aged empire. I mean, it went on for many, many hundreds of years, longer than empires are supposed to last. And there was a lot of peace. It was really interesting. But since 1917, a couple of important dates. One is that was the edited version of Scofield's study Bible, just happened to be published in 1917. It originally came out in 1909. He had an edited version that became very, very popular in 1917. Guess what else happened in 1917? The Balfour Declaration. And if you're not familiar with that, you guys need to look it up. But basically what it said was it was a letter from the British Foreign Secretary, Lord Rothschild. That's an important name. A leader of the British Jewish community. It stated this: His Majesty's government views with favor the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people and will use their best efforts to facilitate the objective, provided that nothing shall be done to prejudice the civil and religious rights of existing non-Jewish communities in Palestine, which who knows if they were non-Jewish. I think they probably were more Jewish than what came and took over there. But that's important because that was the Rothschild involvement there. Now, guess where funding, at least indirectly, came for the Scofield Study Bible? It came from the Oxford Press. And guess who funded that? I'll bet you guys know.
The Rothschilds.
The Lord Rothschild. Yeah.
In fact, here, to accentuate what Neil said, here it is.
Jewish history, and it begins with 3 words: Dear Lord Rothschild.
Oh,
Dear
yes.
Lord Rothschild, I have much pleasure in conveying to you, on behalf of His Majesty's government, the following declaration of sympathy with Jewish Zionist aspirations, which has been submitted to and approved by the Cabinet.
Why was it that this letter was sent by the Foreign Secretary to your great uncle Walter?
It's an interesting question because it was primarily a movement from Eastern Europe, but they didn't clarify who was in charge of that movement. And in addition, it was, after all, in Great Britain. So they felt that the Rothschild family should be the one to whom it was addressed. And
Neil, would you like to speak on that a little bit, Neil, if you could, please?
I'll just remind everyone what happened in 1776. That's why we don't talk like that anymore. Now, this is why it mattered. This is why the Balfour
Speak for
Declaration-
yourself.
Yeah, well,
Yes, tell us.
it was the first major endorsement by a world power for the creation of a Jewish homeland in what was then, like as Matt was talking about, the Ottoman-controlled Palestine. So they're basically getting their hands in this, and it was their way to get the U.S. involved as well. And this is one of the biggest movements, I mean, in our known history, really, because this is all leading to the complete control. And that's why people, they make fun of me when they go, what are there 15 million people or 15 million Jews out there, and there's 1 billion and some Christians, and you really think that the Jews are going to take over the world? And when I talk about Jews, I'm not talking about, I have to just clarify this, I'm not talking about the lineage of Jacob. I mean, I don't even know who those people are anymore. How could we possibly know? I'm talking about those who call themselves Jews, and most of them are white European-skinned Jews, and Ashkenazis, exactly. And if you want to read an interesting book by an Ashkenazi Jew, it'd be by Jack Bernstein, The Life of an American Jew in Israel. And he was married to a Sephardic Jew, and he'll tell you about how racist the Ashkenazis are to the Sephardics, interestingly enough.
That's true.
Israel.
But my best friend is Mizrahi, and they left Israel partially because of the racism, because she looks Palestinian.
Yep.
I mean,
Well, and it's crazy because when Americans go to a tour of the Holy Land, we don't see Israel. I mean, we see some of the land, but you don't get an idea of what it would be like me going to Cancun saying I've been to Mexico. No, you haven't. I mean, you're getting the tourist version.
European pines in a place the European pine tree should not grow, which leads to big fire hazards too. So
There's a lot of history here that's really important for people to understand, and this influence and the beginnings of Zionism are really the beginnings of a one world order. And that's the end goal here, you guys. That's why this is so important. People say, well, why are you so vocal about the Jews in Israel, but not the Muslims and Islam? And look, two things can be true at the same time. Two people groups or two religions can be bad at the same time. I think that I'm not a proponent of Islam, and I don't like Islamic terrorists. But do I have to say that every time I bring up this idea about the Jews in Israel controlling?
You have to.
I have to, because otherwise I'm antiseptic, or whatever the word is they use. So, but I'll tell you this though, the countries like Qatar and Iran and Iraq, as bad as they may be, they're not funding Congress. There's one country that's funding them, and that's actually money being funneled over to them, being funneled back into the pockets of our politicians. So that's why I'm talking about it.
There's a lot of truth on that. And we're going to go ahead, Matt.
Not even 50 years old. That's the thing.
Right.
It didn't exist in the early 1970s.
Yes.
All the liberation movements were allied with Marxist movements at the time.
Well,
So,
and to top that off too, Matt,
yeah.
I mean, just the idea that the reason why it's important to me is because this ideology is controlling the church in the West right now. And people wouldn't even know about this if there weren't for some of these study Bibles. Like if you were in North Korea in an underground church, just reading whatever Bible you get your hands on, just reading the word, you'd have no clue about this stuff. And thankfully, or the underground church in China, they don't know. Well, we know, Neil, because we're reading the study Bibles.
As a Catholic, Catholics, I have no clue about it. Catholics have no clue about anything in the Bible. So this is all news to me.
That's interesting too, because there's a segment. Now, I'm not a Catholic, but there is a segment of Catholicism that is against what Israel is doing. It's really interesting to see those two kind of butt heads.
I would love to hear more about that, but I want to ask you about this, and we're going to get back into like the modern day Israel in the creation of it. But look at this here. I want to get your take on the following, not that, but this rather. Dispensationalism. Okay, let me tell you what this is for all of you newcomers out there. Well, I did the unfortunate study search, which I never usually do, and in these cases, unlike high school, I did. And let me tell you what this is. And Neil might know a thing or two. This is a Christian theology, a theological framework for interpreting the Christian Bible, which maintains that history is divided into multiple ages called dispensations in which God interacts with his chosen people in different ways. It is often distinguished from the covenant theology, the traditional Reformed view of reading the Bible. These are two competing frameworks of biblical theology that attempt to explain overall the continuity in the Bible. Well, in layman's terms, how I interpret that is they're trying to find a way to manipulate the teachings and do it in some kind of archaic MK Ultra kind of disposition. Am I correct on that, Neil?
Yeah, and I don't know their motives. And speaking of which, I need to apologize to Matt. I think I talked over him and interrupted him a little bit ago, and I get excited.
You did.
Jeez.
Yeah.
And so Dean has to
apologize for you.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Matt. Yes, go ahead.
I don't know if the motive in teaching dispensationalism originally was to like deceive people. I don't know. And I grew up learning dispensationalism, but yeah, it revolves around Israel. It's the idea that the Jewish people would be physically restored in this current dispensation in which we live, which started with the coming of Christ and will end with Christ coming back. This is the teaching. This is not what I believe, but this dispensation would end with Christ coming back and planting his feet in Jerusalem, in the land today, in the physical land that people believe or they're taught that is Jerusalem. And that's what would end the dispensation. So the reason that's important and dispensationalism is important is because Christians have been led to believe that there needs to be a third temple built, which would actually usher in the Antichrist, which he would commit what's called the abomination of desolation, where he would desecrate and pollute the temple of God, and then that would initiate God's wrath on mankind. And then the Day of Atonement would come, which is one of the feasts of Israel in the Old Testament. We get into that if we want to, but that would be fulfilled when Israel as a whole repents of her sin and comes to Christ and receives Christ the Messiah. So Christians get really excited about that because they think, oh man, the Temple Institute, templeinstitute.org, they're building another temple. They're going to get the red heifer. They're going to slay a red heifer, and the Antichrist is going to be, who's the Antichrist? And they get all excited about who the Antichrist is going to be. And then we're like, man, if we're going to get raptured out of here. That's another thing that dispensationalism teaches, is that the rapture is going to come first, and then the third temple is going to be built, and then the Antichrist. It's stuff that's not, if you just read your Bible, you're not going to conclude that. Now, maybe some good-hearted people in the past, like Scofield, if he had a good heart, I don't know. Maybe they thought they were teaching the right thing. But I think we rely heavily on institutions and study notes.
That's true.
And seminaries, which I call, cemeteries, because it's where people's faith goes to die. At these seminaries, they're taught Calvinism and dispensationalism and things that I just can't find in the Bible. I'm a simple guy that reads my Bible, and I kind of go from there. So
it seems like also the ultimate, sorry to interrupt, but it's
no, go ahead, please.
It's circular prophecy.
Yeah.
We're gonna push this as hard as possible by getting, like for instance, getting all these big empires on our side, and then we're going to create it, and then we're going to use that as evidence of well, see, look, it's in the prophecy.
Yep.
I mean, it's actually quite absurd when you think about it.
It's weird too, because you look at Bill Maher, for example, who is a very well-known atheist who did a movie called Religulous, and really just dispouts any kind of religion as much as discourse as he can find. However, when it comes to Israel, well, he says, well, it's in their history. It's in their book, their Torah, that they deserve that land. And I'm thinking, which one is it? Which now brings us to this, the creation of Israel.
Yeah.
Well, yes, as we're learning a lot of things here, many of us, again, as adults, we learned about the 1948, wonderful, warm welcoming of the Khazarian Jews to that little place that Ben Shapiro doesn't seem to understand or recognize, called Palestine. Yeah, that's the one I'm talking about. Yeah, the creation of Israel came into place, and maybe Woodrow Wilson had a lot to do with it, or maybe he didn't. However, Lord Rothschild, as you heard him murmur there just earlier, yeah, they had a lot to do with it in the city of London. Well, let's maybe have a little look into it as we try to find out, really, how did this all come about, and why did they pick Palestine, and why are we tied to the hip of this creepy country, if you ask me? Well, here it is. Have a look at this, and you do the math, and so will the guys. The creation of Israel.
Palestine, they promised Arab leaders independence if they rose up against Britain's enemy, the Ottoman Empire. The Arabs did. Hollywood even made a movie about it.
Arabia's for the Arabs now. That's what I've told them anyway. That's what they think. That's why they're fighting.
Oh, surely.
A month after Balfour's letter, British troops took Palestine, ending 400 years of Ottoman rule. The people who lived there were Arabs, mostly Muslims, but there were Christian and Jewish minorities too. There was also a tiny number of European Jews who in the late 1800s had started building small colonies there. At a time when many Jews were suffering horrific persecution in Europe, they felt Palestine could be an escape. The idea of building up a Jewish presence in Palestine became known as Zionism, but it stayed a fringe movement among European Jews. Many of them felt they shouldn't have to leave their countries to avoid persecution. But Zionism as a political movement took a big step forward with an Austrian man called Theodor Herzl. And this guy is a very important name in this story. In 1896, he published Der Judenstaat, or in English, The Jewish State. In it, he said the only way for Jews to avoid Europe's anti-Semitism was not just to leave, but to have their own country. And Herzl didn't just write. The next year, he organized a conference in Basel, Switzerland, the first Zionist Congress. The attendees agreed on a program which sought, among other things, to establish a Jewish homeland in Palestine and promote Jewish settlement in Palestine. From here on out, the Zionist movement became very active, setting up funds to promote Jewish immigration to Palestine, companies to buy land there, and recruiting representatives to advocate for their cause with different governments. A few days after the conference, Herzl wrote this in his diary.
At Basel, I founded the Jewish state. In 5 years, perhaps, and certainly in 50 years, everyone will perceive it.
He was only off by 1 year.
Wow. Well, there you go. There's a little Cliff Note version of how it all came about as the creation of Israel really has set the battleground ready for World War III. You know, Matt,
one thing, sorry,
I'm going to go to you, Matt. I'm going to go to you first. As you know, look, many people have said, even William Cooper, that the entire creation of Israel in 1948, after the United Nations came about in 1945, was really to set us to the point where we are today, as the front of World War III, and ultimately, as Neil said, the one world government. Isn't that the case?
I think it might be a little more nuanced than that. Like, for instance, I think this all still goes down to empire. Even more important in many ways than the Balfour Declaration was a man named Mark Sykes, who, with the French, you've probably heard of Sykes-Picot. They carved up the Ottoman Empire before it was even dead. So this is I think a very colonial empire empire project. What's interesting, though, is in 1939, there was something called the White Paper, which came out. England started realizing their mistake and started heavily restricting Jewish immigration into Palestine. And that really pissed off the Zionists. And it also created a terrorist movement that started in, like the first modern terrorists, the organization Irgun, Haganah, and Lehi. They started using terrorist activities, particularly after World War II in 1946, where it culminated in the bombing of the King David Hotel. Menachem Begin, who later became prime minister, he couldn't even travel to the UK for 20 years after that because he was considered a terrorist, because he's the one who ordered the bombing of the King David Hotel. But I think when you get to that point, the English, especially with the later Churchill and then the Attlee government after Churchill, they had a lot of Zionism fatigue. And I think what ended up happening, though, too, is at that time, the English started getting empire fatigue. They started having a big devaluing pound. And so it was decided, too, to pull out of some areas of the empire and helping leave us with this mess. And at the same time, the Soviet Union and the United States, pretty much agreed on the supporting of the Jewish state. And so then by 1947, you had the partition, which insanely, even though the Palestinians still made up over 2/3 of the population, around 70%, why were they getting 48% of the land and all the shitty land? So when they say, like, you hear this all the time, the Palestinians always miss opportunities. They could have agreed to partition, but you're telling, like, it's like somebody coming into my house and saying, okay, you get the shitty third of my house, you get the shitty 48% of my house, or I'm sorry, that's just how it is. And then you say, no, that's not fair. And then, so then a war develops between you two. And then they say, well, they should have agreed. You're squatters, man. You're freaking squatters. That's what you are.
Yeah. Neil, let me go to you here, as we have a hard break coming up here. But before we do, isn't this just fulfilling prophecy? Maybe Matt doesn't understand that this is where we need the Israel to come into play. We have the red heifer on deck. Don't we just need this? And the Jews have to be there, so when Jesus comes back, he can swat them with a bamboo stick. Are we just playing into our duty as servants?
Well, I do think that. So there is. I think there's always prophecy being fulfilled. So in some ways, yes, but in the way that 90% of Christians think about it, I don't believe that that's the case. Zionism is the fundamental belief that the modern state of Israel represents biblical Israel. And I think that's a big error right there. And it believes that the state of Israel has the right to take over Palestine, as Matt's been talking about, and has the right to expand into what's called Greater Israel. And I think that's been Netanyahu's goal, to get the U.S. to fund the Greater Israel Project and to wipe out places like Gaza and to justify it. And if you're Trump or Trump 2.0 or whatever that person is right now, you want to build a statue, a golden statue of yourself there. Now, when it comes to that, I'm like, I don't want to be on that side of things, Trump. You're going to have to answer to God for that one. So be careful about what you want there. But it's a very dogmatic teaching, especially within the church now, that we, primarily in the U.S., must support Israel because it's our biblical duty. And that's what I take issue with. And that's why I think this is such a fundamental and important issue, is because people have believed for so long in the Ted Cruz Sunday school doctrine. If you bless Israel, you'll be blessed. If you curse them, you'll be cursed. So if I just say a prayer of blessing over Israel right now, I'm going to magically be blessed. And if I curse them, I'll be cursed. And God's going to just push the red button on me. So Zionism really, at its heart, and this is why it's dangerous, I believe, to Christianity, it removes Christ from the equation. Because I think it's pretty obvious when you read the New Testament that Jesus Christ came and fulfilled biblical Israel. It's very fascinating to look at that. And now God's chosen people are all those everywhere, no matter their race, color, gender, ideology that they came from, that they were born in, their lineage, it doesn't matter. God's chosen people are all those that choose God's chosen person. His chosen person is Jesus Christ. If you receive Christ, God receives you. That is what the Christian message is, and it's completely lost in the church today, in large part, I think, based on what started as Scofield Study Bible and what turned into the Moody Institute and the Dallas Theological Seminary and all these other, seminaries and colleges that people are learning from. And now pastors are just parroting this same exact message over and over and over again. It's pounded into our heads. And if you try to have like social media conversations with people about this, if you want some people to unfriend you and to call you the antiseptic term and many other, choice phrases, do it. Because it's happened to me so many times I can't even count now. And I'm nice about it too. You guys know me. I'm nice. Come on.
My friend is Mizrahi, and she gets called anti-Semitic. So there you go.
Oh my gosh.
But also, you want to be part of something so monstrously cruel that is just like the 19th century empires. It's like the Germans in Namibia in 1906, or was 1904. It was, that they killed 85% of the Namib and the Herero. Can't quite remember, but they killed 85% of the populations. Does anyone really want to be part of something so monstrously cruel? You know what I mean?
Well,
no kidding.
And
that's a good point.
This is 19th century colonialism at its apotheosis right here. And I thought we were in the 21st century, but apparently not. Mm-hmm. So
we are, but we're not. There's still, so many archaic practices. We're still doing chemotherapy, for crying out. That's how archaic we are still. And
what was that line that humans have Paleolithic minds, medieval institutions, and godlike technology?
Yeah, exactly. Well, here we have a break coming up here, and you guys make some great points. And another thing too, how is this inviting more people to go to these churches and become Christians? I think it would be a turnoff to anyone who's seeing what in the world's happening in Gaza too. Mm-hmm. As much as the priest scandal was a turnoff to getting new membership for the Catholic Church. It's just people are not thinking like that, Neil. So anyways, when we get back, everybody, and stand by there, guys, when we get back here at the lounge for our season finale, we're going to be getting into October 7th, the dreadful day that changed a lot of, the speech, hate speech, the definition of it, and the new, and created the new, not the new woke, but the new kosher right. Yeah, we're going to be talking about everything kosher in the modern day and how that affects us and how it gave us, the people behind JFK and the people who could be potentially behind the new JFK assassination called Charlie Kirk. And, where does Erica or some of the Ericas stand in on this? We're going to find out as Neil said to us he has a real truth bomb to lay on us here tonight. I'll tell you that much. So stay where you are. You're watching Real Deal Media's The Lounge, original series here, season finale, Zionists versus the West. We'll be back after this quick message. Don't go anywhere. I know I won't. Goes to show, of all the shills we talk about in government, well, certainly that applies to media as well. And you can't talk about shills and not talk about, well, Laura Loomer, who I've been just very fond of, is fond of including in the shows lately. Well, she's now part of a new series called How to Make a Shill. In this next clip, you're going to see a prank, not gone wrong, but gone right. As some activists wanted to sponsor her and wanted to see if they can get her to do anything. Well, they wanted to sponsor her by saying they had a new food item, as you can see there, the dog food, and they said it's edible for humans and dogs too. Now, what Laura Loomer doesn't know is that it's only edible and its only recommended consumption are for dogs themselves, which is probably why she started eating it. Only if she knew. We'll discuss after.
Positive really is an amazing company. Not only do they have these emergency pet kits, but they also have these supplements here. And this is human grade, okay? This is human grade, and I just want to show you now. I'm going to actually do this live on air so you can see for yourself, okay? 100% human grade ingredients is what it says here on the package. And the ingredients are Alberta grass-finished bison liver, Alberta grass-finished bison heart, Alberta grass-finished kidney. These are the same type of nutrients that you can find in the beef organs that you purchase for yourself, right? But this is all protected bison that comes from Canada. So that means that there's no hormones, there's no vaccines given to the bison. So you could actually share these nutrients with your animals. So you could eat this yourself. And I'm going to show you, this isn't a gimmick. This is not just, some trash dog food from China, okay? These are supplements and these are products that are so healthy and natural that you could actually eat it yourself. So you can see here, Positive Bison, it clearly says dog food topper, and I'm going to put this in my mouth right now. Oh, it tastes like meat, and maybe that is disgusting to you. I'll show you right here. Look, this is the bison product right here. It clearly says dog food topper.
What a great actress.
You can see on camera. Actually tastes good. I'm not going to lie. So 100% human grade ingredients, nutrition for your dog in every bite. It's so healthy that you could even eat it yourself.
That's How to Make a Shill with Laura Loomer coming to NBC this fall. And it just tastes so good. Thank you, Laura. We'll make sure to tune in for that. Tonight's show is brought to you by the Real Deal Media Night Owls. Are you a member? Are you a visionary or debonair? A play from the Himalaya? Are you iconic yet not ironic? Well, if you are not those things, want to be those things, or are those things and just need a little more oomph to your game, become a Real Deal Media Night Owl tonight. Why wait till tomorrow? That's right. All you got to do is go to the following and I'll tell you why in a minute, because it's just realdealmedia.tv, realdealmedia.tv. Yes, that's true. Free your mind and the rest will follow. Well, now we have something very special to tell you about now. As the Christmas season is upon us, I can now tell you we have the official Elvis Presley Christmas special coming December 20th. The very rare known living brother of Elvis, the man who stated that his brother stole his entire catalog and career. Well, you can see him doing a one-off Christmas special for the Real Deal Media members all over the world, premiering December 20th. And because of Mr. Melvis, we can now announce everything in our store, including memberships, is now 25% off. All you have to do is use promo code Christmas25, Christmas25, and you will be indeed very pleased. Isn't that great, Neil? I mean, finally he's getting the recognition, and I couldn't be happier for him.
I can't tell if that's him or you, or That's a
Okay, okay, Neil, we're going to turn your mic off. Okay, thank you. You know what I'm saying, Matt? It's just incredible. I don't know what's gotten into Neil lately. You know, he's these guys. You know, I think he's having a little too much red heifer wine there. Okay, all right. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to the incredible season finale of The Lounge: Zionists versus the West. Yes, let's introduce the staff here, the lineup, as they would say. Joining us all the way back from Northern California, the one, the only, Matthew Millan. There it is. And joining us all the way from Texas, man who's no friend of Scofield, although he'll say he's not sure if he has hate in his heart. Well, I can assure you, Neil, I think he did. The one and the only Neil Bishop. Neil, welcome back.
I don't mind. I mean, I don't, Scofield, whatever, but it's Greg Locke that we need to get in the ring together. Weren't you going to set that up? Were you going to set something up, a UFC thing?
Well, yeah, and we're going to do that. And also, we should say Netanyahu's here tonight. I found that one. Yeah, we're going to be talking about that we have a lot of people in the incredible live chats over there. Let me go to Rumble here. We're going to be taking your live questions as it comes. We have Mr. Watland who's saying Zionism is racism on steroids. That's right. Yeah, I wonder if Zionists take the steroid shot right in the ass, just like the...
Certainly revisionist Zionism. Absolutely.
That's even worse. That's even worse than regular Zionism. Okay, we have Liz Merchant all the way from Australia saying, I'm happy to have faith, but no religion. Okay, well, all right, you got to have faith, as that song tells you. There you have it. We have another one. And that's what I'm saying, Neil, this is such a turnoff for people to, I think, get in any organized religion, which I've always stated reminds me of just the guy doing the same book report every weekend about what his interpretation of the Bible is. Interesting stuff there. Okay, and then finally, we have Maddie Lynn, Hammer Time, saying preachers turn their collars around to everyone to get miracles. Okay, all right. I'm not sure about that one. And then Maddie Lynn finally says, I'm sure your grandmother has seen the many ways the church has changed over the years. That's in regards to Davinator. Yeah, and my grandmother too, it might add. But I saw the church change, and they started letting little girls become altar boys or altar girls. I think I just totally botched that. Anyways, okay, we're going to continue on now, and we're going to get to more of the modern day Israel and everything that follows here in the second half as we rush to that sunset. So let's get started, shall we? As now it's time for the lounge, the long stretch home, as they say. Let's get going. It pays to have a house band, I'll tell you. You haven't lived until you have that. Well, October 7th, 2023. Do you remember where you were that day? Exactly. I don't either. Well, let me tell you what happened in case you were sleeping or really recovering from a hangover that you didn't really want to have. It's October 7th, the day that will live in infamy, the day that will live very much in a similar way as 9/11, as there was a lot of alleged stand-down orders. A lot of alleged everything. Yes, it was the day that Hamas, that was funded and pretty much prodded, funded, financed, authored, created by Benjamin Netanyahu, or as we know him here on the streets, John J. Sullivan, as the recent documents have now told us. Yeah, have you heard about John J. Sullivan, guys? You have not fully understood the true genius. Well, October 7th was the day that has changed the narrative in the direction of Israel and the plight of the Palestinians. Well, it got that much more dire. And same with the Americans, as we've been tied to every destructionist and destructive kind of ordeal that has taken place in Gaza and throughout the Middle East since. We're talking Lebanon, Turkey, Syria, Gaza, of course. But there's other people that felt the same way. Well, in fact, this is what Charlie Kirk felt right after it. Well, he said the following: when I first heard about October 7th in the official story, he said, quote, I still have the same gut instinct. The whole country is a fortress. I've been to the Gaza border. Netanyahu now has an emergency government and mandate. I think some questions need to be asked. Was there a stand down order? Well, what's he talking about? Well, look at this. This just came out. When the Hal Levy presented the cabinet with the IDF's actions in the first 48 hours of the war in October 7th and everything that followed, he noted that the Air Force had attacked 1,500 targets in Gaza. It's a huge number requiring exceptional intelligence, they're saying. Well, Netanyahu erupted in anger, yelling and banging on the table. He scolded the chief of staff. He said, we don't have 5,000 approved targets, they told him. I'm not interested in targets, Netanyahu retorted. Take down houses, bomb with everything you have. And in addition to, the former Israeli defense minister, Yoav Gallant, has now admitted using the Hannibal Directive to kill Israeli civilians and soldiers during the October 7th attack. Well, how do you like them apples? Let's talk about that, guys. Matt, I'll start with you. Did you have a heavy heart initially with October 7th, and has it evolved ever since?
Of course, but at the same time, you can't look at it without context. Now, Hamas is like so many other insurrectionary forces that they commit atrocities. They do that, but you still have to, the lion's share of the power is with one side and one side only. And that side has been subjugating Palestinians for way longer than Hamas existed. Hamas came in 1987, where that was already 40 years of complete, and you can go back further, like the Zionists had a part to play in the Arab revolts from 1936 to 1939. But, before Hamas, there was the Sabra and the Shatila massacre. There was the ethnic cleansing of 750,000 people in 1948. There was the ethnic cleansing of another 250,000 people in 1967. So suddenly to put all that on Hamas as year zero, I knew what was coming. I mean, I knew a genocide, that this was what they needed to start, like with their Greater Israel project, as Neil mentioned. That this was a
very good point. Very good point. Neil, go ahead. Finish your thought there, Matt. Sorry.
Look, anybody who dies, I'm not going to be happy or celebratory. You know what I mean? So, and I just got this feeling. I've been in the, it was the same thing though when I was in Libya, when I started hearing, like when I was in Benghazi and we started hearing the rumors of Gaddafi's forces putting babies in ovens, raping all these women, mass raping women. I was just thinking, and when I first heard that, my first thought was in October 7th, I was thinking, that's the first step of dehumanization that almost every group does. You could probably hear some Serbs saying that about what the Ottomans did to justify doing what they did to the Bosnians. You see what I'm saying? That's just like the first step of dehumanization. So I felt what was coming. And most of us who studied this, it was no surprise. I think most of us felt that this was coming. I don't know how you got it, but it just.
Well, yeah, I to answer that, I would say that the average American was not even thinking about Israel in 2023. I think we were, Ukraine was on the map. In my case, I was thinking about the rubbered masked president at that time, Joe Biden, and just who's truly running the office. Will he or won't he? Will Trump come back? I mean, but Israel was so far from my thought. And, I'm from Orange County, Neil, and there's not really a lot of Jewish people here. I never grew up around Jews. Not until I started working in Hollywood did I ever encounter any. And it just was so far removed from me. And then October 7th happened. And the first thing that came in my mind was, well, whatever happened to Arafat, the PLO, as Matt stated earlier, every time there was a peace agreement for a two-state solution, well, it was the PLO or somebody that fired a rocket all of a sudden. And the further I looked into it, Neil, is the more I saw infiltration by Hamas, creating, funding a boogeyman at the very top to then justify an ethnic cleansing. So that, to me, right away, is what I learned from October 7th, Neil Bishop.
Well, you know what's interesting about that is that was the late, great Charlie Kirk's sort of like a awakening, I think. I mean, I'm not going to speak for the guy he's either late or he's in Valhalla, according to our FBI director. I'm not sure where he's at, but whatever happened there. Yeah. October 7th was when he started talking about, hey guys, why was there a stand down order? Why does this country, this nation that has the greatest defense in the world, they just kind of allowed these guys to just drop in from the sky and for hours just rape and pillage? So when I saw it, just like anything now, like when I saw Charlie Kirk's, with their alleged assassination, I pull back and I go, hold on, I don't know if I can believe my eyes here. Now, I'm not saying October 7th didn't happen. We all know that it happened. But how it happened, who orchestrated it, who allowed it to happen, those are huge questions, and they must be asked. And people are so cognitively dissident from it, they can't tolerate these questions, just like what's going on right now with Candace Owens and Tucker and people questioning Charlie Kirk's assassination. When you question what was going on October 7th, again, all the labels started coming. And it's only been a couple of years for me that I did deep dives. And that's one of the incidents that kind of triggered me to go, what is actually going on with Israel and this whole Zionism agenda? And am I a Zionist? Is October 7th, because something didn't ring true for me. So false flags aren't necessarily events that don't happen. They're events that happen, and they're used to manipulate the masses for a specific purpose, to shape culture and to further an agenda. So in this case, it would be to further Israel's agenda, which, my goodness, it did. And I have no idea how much money since then Israel's gotten from us and from other countries, but it's so much, it's hard to fathom.
What a great segue, Neil, to anti-Semitism. Wonderful. As we now talk about it, what is anti-Semitism? Well, from what you just heard there from Neil, who clearly has issues with Israel. I mean, he loves Hamas.
I'm anti-Semite.
But from what we learned from it, or what we knew about it up until recently, was it, I guess, was just anti-Semitism was just, hate or shade thrown at Jewish people. In the same way, I guess racism was thrown at people of color. But is it truly, really? So we're going to find out just exactly that. Matt, you seem to know a thing or two or heard about it. What is anti-Semitism in the modern day?
It's an inaccurate term, man. I mean, I've always thought that because, Semitic, that refers to a certain language group. And frankly, Yiddish was not a Semitic language. It had some Semitic words in it. But Yiddish was not a Semitic language. It was an Indo-European language. Whereas Arabic, Aramaic, Hebrew, but, nobody in Europe spoke Hebrew. That was, there were rabbis that did, but the average Jewish person certainly didn't. So, to call it, for one, that always bothered me. I know that's kind of nitpicking a little bit. We generally think of anti-Semitic being anti-Jewish, but I think it is true that we've monolithized. I think I just created a word, but we monolithized this idea.
I love it.
The Jewish as a nation, which we tend to, in a nation, you have a homeland. And just that is extremely dangerous to say, because if you were an English Jew in 1910, you'd be like, well, what the hell? You're saying now you want to make this homeland for me when my family has lived in England for way before I can even go back to my lineage? Are you crazy? I'm English. Jewish happens to be what our practice was. So I think the term, although I nitpick about its inaccuracy, there is definitely this idea, like that's gone back since the Middle Ages. You look at like during the plague, the ideas that the Jews were poisoning the wells and that was causing the plague, even though the obvious thing was that Jews were dying in the exact same numbers as everybody else. So,
well,
it's truly that it is truly there. I wish we had a more accurate term.
Well, here's what the accurate term is according to Webster and the Wikipedia, who I wholeheartedly trust. They're saying that anti-Semitism is hostility, prejudice towards discrimination against Jews. A person who harbors it is called anti-Semite. Whether anti-Semitism is considered a form of racism depends on the school of thought or the political, pundit of the day. Anti-Semitic tendency to be motivated by primarily negative sentiment towards Jews as people. Well, according to Anthony Greenblatt, recently, he's now redefined exactly what that term is.
The reality is there are segments of the far left which have been consumed by this anti-Zionist ideology. Now, we've talked on your show before, and I'm pretty out there saying anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism because it is. I also think the sky is blue. I also think that the world is not flat. The rabid anti-Zionist is just an anti-Semite by any other name. By the way, even if they come from our Jewish community, we need to recognize that as well.
All right.
Well, there you have it. That's kind of what he's now redefining. Neil, you want to take a stab at that? And please be mindful, because you could be falling on the new definition from Jonathan Greenblatt of the ADL.
Well, I for some reason it says my computer can't show the video. It's not supporting MP4 video, so I'm not sure what the video was, but I can tell you that the word anti-Semitic has been hijacked, just like racism. What is racism? Nobody can define it anymore. It's an overused word to shut down a conversation and to take a moral high ground argument and to say, I'm winning this argument because I'm not a racist and you are. I'm not anti-Semitic and you are. So then the conversation's over and then it's done. So if you really want to have your world rocked about Semitism, or it really comes from the word Shemite, you should read the book by Eustace Mullins called The Curse of Canaan, A Demonology of History. It's not one you're going to read over a weekend. It's going to take a lot of thought and it takes time sorting through it. But wow, he goes through the history of it and to show that everything that is up is actually down. The world is upside down. We are in upside down clown world. Anti-Semite is actually the opposite of what we think it means. That's a deeper subject. What people think it means is hatred toward Jews. And I don't see anybody, even the the infamous Nick Fuentes, whether you love him or hate him, I've never been a fan, but he doesn't even fit. He does not fit the definition of anti-Semite. He just doesn't. If you listen to what he says, he doesn't fit the definition of what people think of anti-Semite now is hatred toward Jews. And the ones that have been labeled the top anti-Semites, I think Candace Owens got like the number 1 or number 2 anti-Semite of the year. Miss Rachel. Well, she had a wounded Palestinian kid on her show, Matt. Now I feel like you're being anti-Semitic just bringing it up. How dare you?
Not liking genocide against brown people is anti-Semitic.
Yeah, so. That's anti-Semitic.
What was the guy's name again? You said I thought it was Shemp too. Was it Shemp? You said
Shem.
We have Seth Black.
Shem. Okay. Yeah. That's a biblical
very interesting.
Name. Oh yeah, and Eustace Mullins, who also is an anti-Semite, an acclaimed anti-Semite. They all are. Anybody who's written about the other side of history or any of this stuff, they're all labeled. If you Google them, they're just all anti-Semites. But he goes through he goes from the beginning, goes into secret societies, Freemasonry, Shem, Canaan, anti-Semitism, how it all started, why it started. It's very interesting. I think it's a book that everybody should read. The Curse of Canaan, A Demonology of History.
Do you think they're losing the Matt, I'll ask you, do you think that the Zionists are losing the grip of the narrative? And does anti-Semitism charges still even affect anybody's brand anymore?
I also think that they're creating a serious problem they're actually creating Frankenstein's monster, honestly. That this is just going to do nothing but push anti-Semitism, because people that may harbor some views also will be like, see, look what they're doing. And so to equate being anti-Israeli with being anti-Jew is extremely disastrous for them in the long term. And that's why I think the good news is the majority of young Jews, I think now in this country, or at least 40% of the young Jews are not buying it.
Yeah.
And because you're taking a serious thing that we know the history of it has been disastrous. I mean, the Holocaust, obviously, and the pogroms that happened, the Inquisition, where the Sephardi's ended up in North Africa because that was the only place they were safe. So there was a serious problem with it. And the worst thing you could do too is like when Biden said the only safe place, he said something like that, the only safe place for Jews is in Israel. It was like, are you fucking kidding me? What about our citizens? All of them, even, you know, like every Jewish citizen in this country is an American.
Yep.
Whether I like what the person believes or not, they should be protected like everybody else, man. I mean,
well, here's where I think it all stems from, and Neil, you could correct me if I'm wrong.
I'll correct
I don't
you,
think
right.
I am. Well, this is where I think it all stems from. It's from 1996. Netanyahu comes in power, okay, and he gives us the following: a clean break strategy that was the precursor to the Project for the New American Century. Well, what that stated was a strategy securing a realm for Israel that prepared pretty much the Richard Pearls of the world that stemmed from, the neocons that stemmed from Zionism. And what it gave the Israelis when Netanyahu, Mr. John J. Sullivan, came into power was a new direction for a greater Israeli project and a greater Israeli altogether to take out their neighbors who they deem hostile and go on the offense preemptively and not wait on the defense. And that's what we're seeing today, in addition to a proxy war with China. And no doubt about it, but they seem to be losing the plot, if you know what I'm saying. In fact, this next video that you're going to see here is the president of the World Jewish Congress, which, by the way, really does exist. He's now sending a warning to every potential American First candidate. Yes, MTG out there, Thomas Massey, even down to the local level, that if you're wishing to run for U.S. Congress and you don't support Israel, like many people have said before, if you are a platform and say anything we deem, quote, anti-Semitic, we will target you. It's unbelievable stuff. Check this out.
Any candidate running for a seat in this building, whether for Congress or Senate, whose platform includes anti-Semitism, we will target them as they target us. Accordingly, we will start a fund to help their opponents. We cannot passively sit by and let anti-Zionists determine our future. None of this will be easy. It will take time and effort from all of us. And Jews cannot fight this fight alone. Frankly, we shouldn't have to, because this is not a Jewish issue. It's a democratic issue. It's a moral issue. It's a human issue. Let us build a coalition so strong, so united, so determined that no extremist movement can fracture it. And above all,
let's talk about that, Neil. Let me ask you, because we have Rebel Mama on Rumble saying the following, that which really coincides with what we just saw. She said the following, that this is a war between the Zionists and the Muslims. Christians cannot support either side. Both want us unalived. What are your thoughts on that, Neil Bishop?
Well, to go back to Matt's point about the young people, it's not just young Jews. It's all young people that are waking up to this. Now, if I could start a campaign, if somebody asked me and said, hey, would you help Bibi Netanyahu start a campaign to wake young people up about the dangers of Israel and what's going on over there, I would do exactly what they're doing right now in this weird, sick and twisted kind of way. I'd be like, hey, Bibi, what you should do is like call like a 50 American influencers over and have a meeting with them and tell them, hey, we need to take over TikTok and we need to take over Instagram and, we need to push the Israel message. that will actually do the opposite of what Bibi wants. It will help young people wake up to this idea. If I could advise him, I would say, why don't you start just going on this campaign tour saying you had nothing to do with the Charlie Kirk assassination, that Israel had nothing to do with it. Young people are smart and they're waking up to it. Or go on a tour saying, this is why we must completely wipe out Gaza and take out the Gazan people and take out the Palestinians that are there. The young people they're a different generation. They don't care if their friend has Jewish or thinks they have Jewish lineage or Arab, or if they're all mixed anyway, and they're figuring out nobody even knows. It doesn't matter. So young people, it's backfiring against them. It's completely backfiring. What they're trying to do is brainwash people, and they're continuing to use, now they're using TPUSA to do it, which I don't know if you want to get into that or not, but they're using these organizations now to try to brainwash people. It's going to backfire big time. If TPUSA goes down this road, they are going to be gone. They've gotten a huge amount. I mean, hundreds of millions of dollars just over the last few months. It's going to dip so hard because their message is going to backfire, especially now that.
Well, here's the message.
There are many Europeans on the right who would like to cut a separate piece with Russia. No, that would not be good for the United States if Russia somehow earns itself a gigantic chunk of Ukraine and another invasion of Ukraine in the next 5-10 years. The notion that we ought to be chiding the Europeans on their democracy, but not chiding, we should chide everybody, but chiding the Europeans and not chiding the Russians and pretending neutrality. I mean, I can see why the Russians are trying to expand their foothold in Ukraine. I mean, what guarantee could a United States that puts out that and pretending neutrality?
The sheer hypocrisy of them, man.
Isn't this just about that we have to really listen? This is a Zionist policy. It's a Zionist policy that they want to continue going. And Matt, I'm not sure the young people or even the Christians want any part of their greater Israel project.
Does Ben Shapiro's wife even like him? I mean,
No, she hates him.
She's banging the tennis instructor, right?
Is he really?
Purportedly.
Really? Neil, I didn't hear this before. Wait a minute. Are you saying Ben Shapiro is banging his tennis instructor? Is this?
No, we're breaking news. Breaking news, Matt. Come on.
If his wife has a tennis instructor, she's banging the tennis instructor.
Oh, Matt, you got me so excited. I was willing to change the entire format of this show on a.
He's the original incel. He's the OG incel, man. What are you talking about? That's
Benny boy.
I feel so let down, Neil.
His wife won't be banging, man.
Just real quick, and I want to get into Toilet Paper USA, but regarding what we just heard there, they really, I think it is Netanyahu and the Zionists that want war with Russia, and they're willing to sacrifice Israel 1.0. We had the documents, secret documents that were just discovered recently through a FOIA request that Netanyahu is an intelligence asset of the U.S. They listed it down to 3 intel agencies: FBI, CIA, or get this, IRS. Can you imagine Netanyahu doing your taxes? But nonetheless, if that is true, that would make sense that he is being so forthright out there, which I think would wake up people, Neil, or just to be the devil and the advocate at the same time. It is what they call rage baiting, that people like the incredible villain Rabbi Shmuley, one of the greatest villains since the Penguin, that he really inspires.
Too, right? He must.
What's that?
He must know he's a villain.
Oh, he's the greatest villain.
Yeah,
I mean, he's everywhere these days.
But to raise a quick point, 40% of Israel's oil comes from Russia. So
yeah, and
there's a lot of interbreeding going on here.
There we go. There's Rabbi Shmuley. Oh my gosh! Happy Halloween, everybody!
He makes sex toys. From what I hear. There you have that one.
Oh, do you remember? Do you remember Candace Owens? Talk about a roast. Saying, I'm talking about you, Rabbi Shmuley. You are the synagogue of Satan. you're a fake Jew. It was quite incredible to watch.
I do
and
remember
just-
that.
Oh yeah.
But here's my point, Neil, is we seem to have these people, they're dictating our foreign policy so much, and they're even dictating our domestic policy, as said by Rabbi Huckabee.
This is another question: that is Israel blackmailing the U.S. government with the Jeffrey Epstein files? Again, what a ridiculous kind of unfounded, unverified allegation. It emanates from someone's imagination. Nobody's provided one shred of evidence to indicate that there's any truth to it. Reckless allegations, whether it's against an individual or a country, are just that. They're reckless and they're harmful. Just like no one would want to have people say crazy things about them individually or their families, people ought to push back when anyone, whether it's a podcast host or just somebody making a speech, gets up and says something as unfounded as that somehow Israel was behind Jeffrey Epstein.
How unfounded is that? Oops. Well, let's take the villain off there. They're dictating everything, and Huckabee should be tried for treason, as far as I'm concerned. He's a danger to our national security and my personal space, to be exact. They're dictating that. You know what I'm saying? So let's now talk about. Let's get into TP USA. I spoke to Matt Millan here at great length when Charlie Kirk was part of that just terrible day there. And you want to share some of that sentiment you shared with me at that time, Matt, because due to my brain fog after Shmuley, it's just so hard these days.
Well, I mean, for one, I certainly did not like a lot of what Charlie Kirk said. I didn't appreciate his rhetorical style quite a bit. There was a lot not to like about what he did for me. But the dude was like, what, 32 years old?
31.
I mean,
31 years old.
Man.
Yeah.
And I mean, looking back and, when I was for instance, when I was in high school, I had some pretty abhorrent views about things, some things.
I know.
All of us have
Me
a
too.
chance to move on and outgrow and evolve from those things. And so that's why we should mourn anybody,
Absolutely.
I mean, who gets it cut short like that. So
Neil, I agree so much. Americans love a good redemption story. You look at, Robert Downey Jr., perfect example. Just everybody loves a good redemption. He was so young, but
I'll give you bad
Harvey Weinstein. Great, thank you, Matt. Harvey Weinstein. There's that one. But speaking of redemption, let's now get into this because Erica Kirk, I'm not sure, is she looking for redemption? Because she sure moved on right away. I mean, they did a rock concert at a stadium for Charlie Kirk, all kinds of things. And she loves JD Vance. We learned. What are we learning about this woman
he would
here?
Walk through the door, drop his bags, daddy's home, take his phone, Friday night, Shabbat Shalom, throw it in the junk drawer, and it was just all us. And that's what I always wanted to make so special for him, was coming home. I'd always say, baby, I don't care what time you get home. Home is here for you. Your food will never be cold. It might sit out for a little bit, but I'll reheat it. It's fine. And I just want to encourage spouses, don't get mad. It's so
Daddy's home. Take the phone. Shabbat Shalom. I know you're alone. Neil, what do we make of this? Shabbat Shalom. Shlemiel Shlemazel, something incorporated.
Gosh, and I didn't even want to. I didn't want to be this kind of guy. I didn't want to be this cynical. I'm trying. I know, but I'm trying. I'm trying to just be a normie, and be like, she's just a beautiful widow. And what's interesting, and this is what I'll say. From the very beginning, literally day one of when this happened, something just didn't sit right with me. I'm an empath. I enter into people's emotions. So, Dean, you know this as well as anybody. If you start crying and you get emotional, I'm going to start crying right there with you. I don't even know why you're crying half the time. You just start crying, and I start crying too. it's the way I am. Maybe some pigs attacked you. Who knows what happened, but you start crying, I start crying. My daughter, the day after this happened, she called me, and she's 22 years old. She goes, Dad, something doesn't seem right. She's like, you know what it is? It's like, I can't enter into her emotion with her. And I said, you're right. I don't either. I don't tear up when she talks. I don't enter in. And then the more I've watched her and the more I've paid attention, things just feel a little Truman Showy-ish to me. Too perfect. The hair is too perfect. The, $1,000 dresses are too perfect. The outfits, the grabbing the JD Vance by the head and the leather pants and all this stuff keeps coming out. And now she's on a tour to tell the podcasters to just stop it. Just stop. And she's not bringing up substantive issues. She's bringing up moral high ground issues like liberals do, saying you're wrong because it's, we should be focused on other things. We're building better things. So you need to stop questioning this. It's really odd. It's rubbing me the wrong way. And one of the great things about, I'm a little bit like Matt, like I was never a Charlie fan. My wife had met him a few times at events and stuff and said he and Erica were, honestly, she said, this is way before this ever happened, they were kind of weird together. There was just a weird vibe with them. But we didn't really know them, at least not too well. And I wasn't a big fan and sit around and watch him. But I appreciated clips I saw of him, and I appreciated his courage talking at university and stuff. But one of the things that he did was he evolved in his understanding. As he's getting older, he was still young, like Matt said, but he was willing to change his views and to have his viewpoints challenged. And isn't it interesting that he was leading up to his death, really even the day before his death, he was concerned about his safety. He was questioning the Israel narrative, and that put him on notice by donors. Literally, he talked about this. He was getting flack from donors and getting money pulled, and he was turning down money from Netanyahu, and people were concerned about him. His donors, the board, the people within TPUSA were getting concerned about him. And now the book that Erica, his wife, is promoting is basically a book that was purportedly or allegedly written by Charlie Kirk right before he died, which I haven't seen any proof that he ever promoted this book, but we'll see if that comes out. And it's about basically how to be a good Jew, how to keep the Sabbath. I just think something's rubbing me the wrong way here, Dean. I don't like it. It's concerning to me. And now her coming after people that are really trying to delve deep into questioning the weird oddities about his death. And now she's telling them to shut up. And I will say this, to Candace's credit, she did not start a war with Erica Kirk. She's been very kind, very gracious with Erica. Erica has come out now and started this. And I'm telling you, Erica's not ready for the unleashing of Candace Owens, as Candace has been holding back. I don't agree with everything Candace says. Everything can, but I definitely am on board with her questioning everything that's going on here, which in a second, when you're ready, I'm going to bring up an interesting
okay. Neil's going to drop, he's going to drop something. This is Erica Kirk talking about how we need to keep quiet and promoting Charlie's new book called Stop in the Name of God, and to
keeping the Sabbath.
Neil's
the title of the book.
Stop
this is
in the
book.
name of God. And she's saying, literally, you guys, it's like, I think, Dean, I sent you a picture of the Truman Show lady, the wife of Jim Carrey in the Truman Show, compared to Erica Kirk. And she's like holding this book and she's like, stop in the name of God. And so she'll tell, so what's your message to podcasters, Erica? Stop it. Just stop. And then it'd be like, and what's your book, Erica? Oh, let's stop in the name of God. I'm promoting this too. It's so weird and fake. It's all about Shabbat Shalom, keeping the Sabbath.
It's a reality show. Yes. Here she is. And unlike Neil, I agree with everything Candace says. I'm all in. I'm all in.
Yeah.
Good to see you again today. Talk to me about this part of the conspiracies that are out there, this disturbing part that people are trying to guess where Charlie is.
Can I have one thing?
Oh, yeah.
Can I have one thing? Can my children have one thing? Everything was public. We will be building the most beautiful memorial for my husband at Turning Point.
It may have just had, she's looking at the teleprompter behind Harris Faulkner, who's dressed like one of the Bee Gees here in this little doohickey here.
USA, and it will be for the world to see, and it will be spectacular, and it will have basically museum style for our Charlie, for my Charlie. But can I have one thing? Can my babies have one thing where we hold it sacred, where my husband is laid to rest, where I don't have to be worried about some secular revolutionary coming and destroying my husband's grave while my daughter is sitting there praying? One thing. This is my husband. Yes, he was Charlie Kirk to the world, and I know so many people love my husband, and I am grateful for that. But this is my husband, and I want to be able to have one thing left that is sacred to our family, to my in-laws, to my babies, and to
Doesn't she just want one thing?
my parents. One thing.
What are they taking from you right now?
Do you see how that was scripted too? What are they taking from you right now?
Oh, it's all scripted.
But I will tell you what they are doing. It reminds me so much of chapter 6 in the book of Nehemiah.
Okay. Well,
He's building a
anyways,
wall.
you get the point. And she,
So am I one of the secular revolutionaries?
She's talking about you, Matt, and maybe Neil too, and myself.
I have
Secular revolutionaries.
no desire to do anything to go even near a monument like that. And the whole thing that strikes me is grief capitalism, man.
Yeah,
Ooh,
it's
that's
weird
a
and
great term. Grief
I
capitalism.
hate to say that too, because one of my good friends, Stephen Sotloff, was beheaded by ISIS in 2014, and a lot of the stuff that came out really hurt the family. So I have some sympathy for her, but it just seems she hit the ground running, man, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, Matt. I want to say this too. I'm going to say if we can believe our eyes, and I know that sounds really weird and conspiratorial, but I'm going to say it. If we can believe our eyes, if what we saw with Charlie Kirk were true, if he did get shot in the neck that day, and if he is dead, that's the most, I think, as far as we know, the most publicized assassination or murder in the history of the world. And it wasn't just that. It wasn't like that happened and then Erica came along and said, which I would have respected if she came along and said, I need privacy. I want the funeral to be private.
Absolutely.
I want it all fine. But it was the opposite of that. It was the weird scene of bending over his coffin and kissing his hands and whispering to him. I was freaked out when I saw it. I'm like, that can't be real.
Absolutely, man. It was the show must go on type of thing.
Yeah. And so that's freaked me out. And so I just think I agree with Candace who said you can't have the best of both worlds. It's either public or it's not public. And this is so public by her choice. It's not even funny. It's actually nauseating how public all this was. And so she can't then turn around and say, well, no, we're not going to tell anybody where Charlie's buried. I mean, that if you want to start a conspiracy theory movement, then do what you're doing.
Exactly what they're doing. Right, exactly,
It's-
yeah.
And I should actually first, let's read the top comment from last episode. This person wrote, Issa Rae wrote, Erica Kirk will forgive someone 1 week later for murdering her husband, but she won't forgive someone for not believing the FBI narrative. I saw a lot of people commenting that online, that the energy definitely feels different for people that want to get to the truth than it does for the person who she believes killed her husband. And I don't believe that that is the person who pulled the trigger. I just don't. And you're allowed to disagree with Erica. You are. And that's fine. She's allowed to think what she thinks, and you're allowed to think what you think. That's what I want you guys to know.
Can I say something real quick, Dean,
Please
about
do.
that before I break? The thing that really got me, what was it, a few days after, I don't know what, it was less than a week. I can't, the timelines are all screwed up now. When they had the huge, what was supposed to be a memorial, but it was more like a kind of a big ball where thousands of people came and everybody, got their cell phones hacked and all that stuff. When she said the words, when she looked and what seemed, I'm just going to say what I saw. I saw a staged event and I saw her say the words, I forgive him, in that dramatic way. I said right there on the spot, that's fake. It just was fake. And I'm sorry if it's true, if it's all authentic, which I'm 99% sure it's not. But if there's that 1% chance it is, I apologize for saying that. But that was fake. But now she's in a hard position because she has to forgive everybody now. If you forgive someone that quickly, if you have that in your heart, which as a Christian, that is not even, it's not the right way to do things. In my opinion, I could go on about that. But now you have to forgive everybody for everything that they do to you instantly, because nothing could ever compare to doing something that horrendous to someone as to assassinating their husband in cold blood like that. And so now that the person, you got a point. Like, why are you so mad and unforgiving to people who are trying to seek out and find the truth of what happened to your husband? It's very ass backwards. It smells wrong. And I trust my gut more than I trust the government and more than I trust the media. And my gut's telling me this is way off.
But also, to say secular revolutionaries to turn this into a culture war,
right?
I mean, that is completely taking advantage of the situation. No matter, I mean, dignified silence can go a long way sometimes, man. And I mean, she has every right to go defend like crazy attacks and all that, but to suddenly turn this into a culture war, which it appears she has been doing or is part of.
Well, here it is too. Matt, is now Tyler Robertson, the incredible Patsy. Well, guess what? He's a Mormon. The Mormon religion are the biggest Zionist promoters and facilitators, that we've never known about. His family is LDS. The governor turned down the rhetoric when Tyler turned himself in. So here it is. He continued his education at BYU. The man accused of the September 25th fatal shooting, raised conservative Christian. So there he is, a Mormon. Okay, Neil, what is the big truth bomb here? Because Ben Shapiro's not going to like it, and these people, even Pastor Greg Locke, who we're going to address here before we go, doesn't like it either. They've demonized Candace. He called her the modern era Hitler wannabe, which
you've got to be kidding me.
That's just incredible.
This guy does not disappoint. Wow.
What is the truth bomb, if you will, Neil Bishop?
I don't want to call it a truth bomb. It's just something really interesting. And maybe we could do a live exercise, okay? If we do a live exercise and you guys get on your phones, you type in the Google. If you were to type in, let's say Claude, Claude, and Erica Kirk. Just type in Claude and Erica Kirk.
I'm doing that right now. CLUDE?
CLAUDE. Yeah, and Erica Kirk. Claude and Erica Kirk. Claude and Erica Kirk were a notable political couple in Florida. Claude Kirk, interestingly, he's got the CK initials. Exact name for Erica Kirk. He was the state's first Republican. Blah blah blah. Erica Kirk served as first lady. If you go down, it's like we're making AI glitch. It says tragedy and forgiveness. Claude Kirk was assassinated in 1991, and Erica's public declaration of forgiving his murderer became a widely discussed example of grace. It's very odd.
They have a good script, I guess.
It's really, it's something's glitching in the AI world. I'm not sure what's happening, but I don't know where this path will lead, but maybe one of your viewers will go down this rabbit hole and figure out who Erica Kirk was in 1967, who was married to this Claude Kirk. Now, she was apparently or reportedly born in Germany. She doesn't, it's hard to find her history. People were surprised at the time that this much older fella than her was marrying her. What's striking too, you guys, I did a little bit of just kind of like, let me just take a look at her picture. I think you had that pulled up there, Dean, and I put in my assistant. I had my assistant online check to see if, like, with both photos of the current Erica and this Erica from 1967, and I basically asked my assistant, could these people like be the same person? And this is I'm not like a huge conspiracy guy with this kind of stuff, but this is weird. It said, if we pretend that both photos were taken in the same era, it gives me a clean, detailed facial feature comparison. And overall, it says with the chin, the ears, the smile, the lip shape, the bridge of the nose, the brows, the eyelids, the size and shape, the cheekbones, all that stuff, it says the facial proportions are consistent enough that it would be entirely plausible that they're the same person. The biggest difference, was the hair, the clothing, the makeup, the photography, and all that kind of stuff. Bottom line, their facial features are highly compatible. If you told someone these were two photos of the same woman taken around the same decade, it wouldn't seem far-fetched at all. It's just an odd thing. And I don't have any conclusion. I don't know where to take it. I'll pull a Candace. I'm just asking questions, and I'm not even really asking a question. I think it's something that someone should research and see if there's any connection with that Erica Kirk and this current Erica Kirk. Because I'll tell you why it's important, I think, is because she sort of came, who knew about Erica Kirk before, a few months ago? Very, very, very few people. If you knew anything, Charlie married her a number of years ago and you knew that he had a wife or whatever. All of a sudden, I mean, I don't even have to surmise about this. She wants the public eye. She wants to be in the limelight. She's come out of nowhere. And then when you research her background, she's a minor. As a minor, she was starting an orphanage in Romania. And that orphanage in Romania, again, this is reportedly or allegedly, wanted this organization to leave because they were accusing them of trafficking children. Now, I don't know if any of that's true. I'm just saying this is like all out there. And then she was the music artist, and she was in music videos, and she was Miss Arizona, and she was, bought by Trump into that whole club. And it just goes on with this person. And I don't understand it, but there's some sort of connection. I can feel it with this Erica Kirk from whatever it was 60 years ago, whatever it is.
She's Miss Arizona too. Miss Arizona.
Weird.
Let's not forget that.
And they met in Israel.
Wow.
And they met in Israel. I mean,
She kind of she reminds me of like she was made at the factory for every Fox News pundit.
Oh yes.
And the old clone factory, just pushing it on
the clone factory.
Yeah.
And to Neil,
I do feel a little like I'm stepping over the line, just feeling that way, and I'm feeling a little guilty. But I also feel guilty because I didn't like Charlie Kirk at all, and I'm not going to lionize him, but I can still feel bad. The thing for me that really struck me, I think I told you, Dean, is that when I was in Libya and when the assassination started happening, and then after the revolution, and when everything started falling apart in front of us, I got the same feeling when I saw the maelstrom, the vacuum open up and suck everything in, and it gives me a little weird PTSD actually in some ways.
It's very weird. Neil, if you could maybe repeat that for Matt and maybe the viewers regarding Charlie Kirk's birthday. It was oddly enough similar, if not dead on, with was it George Floyd?
George Floyd. They have the same birth date. And, you have one movement on the weird left satanic realm that George Floyd started with all the riots and the activism and the disgusting stuff people were doing. And then you kind of have the rights movement, the rights, it's sort of like this inversion of a movement, that is contrasted to that one, but it's still just an unbelievably huge movement with Charlie Kirk. And they happen to have the same birth date. And you and I have talked about this, Dean. George Floyd is not who he was purported to be. And a lot of these characters aren't. Yes. And now, I mean, we're talking about Erica's talking about her family. George Floyd's family were Freemasons, and there's all kinds of stuff there. But Erica Kirk now brought up, don't mess with my family, meaning her TPUSA family. That's getting exposed too. I just, unfortunately, and I'm saying this as a Christian because I feel the same guilt at times that Matt was talking about when I'm like, I don't want to be picking on a widow. And if this if there's that 1% chance that this is all authentic, then I publicly apologize right now for all of that. But I'm just saying that that TPUSA, and I'm coming at this as a Christian, I wish TPUSA were authentic and I wish it were real. But you're talking about the Andrews and the Tylers there, and these people are not who I don't believe at this time that they are who we've thought they were.
Due to time constraints, okay, everybody, I have a final question for everybody, but we have a lot of people who are just pouring in here all over the place, as this is a highly censored episode here tonight, all over the interwebs, more so than usual. We have Rebel Mama who's asking, time traveler? Good question. Neil, was there a flux capacitor, do you think, involved in this whole ordeal with Erica Kirk? We should ask. We're wondering.
Yeah, and we could
also.
yeah, true. Yeah, go ahead.
No, and by the way, it's what makes time travel, just in case you forgot. Also, we have people saying David Nader said, is she reptilian? Could very well be so, and a very stunning and very attractive one, some might say. Here we have Marnie asks and says she can't find any pictures of Erica pregnant anywhere, none whatsoever. She can't find one thing ever. We have Seth Black who's saying George Floyd was a rubber training doll. Yes, he was. He was a mannequin, as we proved it, Seth, who just happened to have a twin brother who accepted all the millions of dollars of donations the day of. And let us not forget how he was all over the Obama Twitter and Hillary Twitter before the event even happened. They were using him as an icon, another CIA theatric. We have John Bisglione who said Claude and Erica's baby was tapped with an ugly stick. Yikes. I didn't catch that one. And here is interesting. Trump sponsored the USA Miss America pageant that she was in. Okay, well, that leads a great segue to our final segment here of the Trump factor as well. We close this incredible, riveting, epic episode here for the season finale of The Lounge. Well, one question remains unanswered, or is it? And that's the Trump factor in this whole ordeal. Well, Trump, rallied his campaigns over the years, even before he took office in 2017 as a non-interventionist. That's right. Many libertarians, even including myself, thought, well, yes, for once, somebody's tapping into the Ron Paul playbook of American and American made, Americans first, America first for that fact. And we're tired of these stinking wars. What are they good for? Absolutely nothing. Until Bibi came into the play, Netanyahu and the rest of the Zionists. Or is he playing a close game of charades and high-stakes poker? Is he going to turn on the Zionists in the end, as they've saved Israel for last, for that fact? Well, let's start with you, Matthew Millan, as we close the night here.
Okay,
kind of in a
first
final
off, I want to say
roundabout.
Bush
Go ahead.
W campaigned on non-interventionism as well. So that's, these still are, figureheads of an expansionist empire, which I hope you realize that's what we are, man. And, these, and in a state of forever wars. And, in so many ways, I was completely unsurprised that Trump would have. Trump's going to go. I know I've had experience recently with an extreme narcissist, and you can see a lot of the same, the characteristics of them, and they're kind of like sharks, and they're not that capable of planning. In a sense that everything's kind of based on a predatory, instantaneous thing. It's actually an easy algorithm to understand if you know narcissism. And I'm sure you guys have probably come across narcissists as well. So I think he can be easily led by those around him. And we still have the stench of some neocons that followed him into office, which I was completely unsurprised about. So I'm not surprised. I actually expected this. So.
Can he turn it around, Matt, before we go to Neil? Can Trump turn it around, or is he all in and we're just witnessing the fall of Babylon in the US of A as we know it?
He's not going to turn it around. He's not capable of that. And the people around him, not just the clowns, but no, they're not capable of turning it around. And remember, this is I hate to say that, this is an ailing, dying empire, and we're seeing it in real time. It's just accelerating quicker than a lot of us ever expected. So, but I don't think there's any way. I don't think it's any way that anybody could turn it around. What's going to happen to the United States? So
interesting. Okay, Neil, turn around every now and again. Is Trump going to be able to do it? In which Trump? Well, maybe this Trump, with the Austin Powers teeth, or maybe this Trump with the incredible veneers all of a sudden, or maybe Bill Cartwright Trump from Bonanza might be able to do it with a little nub as a thumb, or maybe the truly Trump after a Big Mac, as he now approves as another $650 million to Israel. Congress approved it
You
too.
drank
Trump
from the
is
wrong
now-
grill there.
Trump has now approved around $20 billion to Israel in under a year. This is on top of the $4 billion they already get for their allowance. So I guess now I have the responsibility to ask you, Neil, the Trump factor. Will Donald Trump be able to turn it around, Neil Bishop?
I still think that I've told you before, there's two Trumps, good Trump, bad Trump. Goes back to a dream I had. I think the good Trump could, but I don't know where he is. He's missing. I don't know if he's abducted, taken out. I don't know what happened to good Trump, because bad Trump seems weird. I'm taking this at face value too. I'm not playing the Q game that everything's, 6 million D chess or whatever it is. I'm just taking it at face value. If I take it at face value, we're heading down a very, very scary path. But I say that, and I also want to do an exclaimer. I think it has to happen. It's inevitable. Empires fall. And I don't want to suffer. I don't want it to fall. I'm just saying it's inevitable for it to fall. And I think we've reached an apex in history, in the history of this country.
I agree with you. Yeah.
It's coming down, and there's so much evil. There's so much deception. It's inevitable. It has to fall, and it's going to be hard, because people don't understand when there's a revolution, when people truly wake up, and let's say we actually do what the founding fathers told us to do with a tyrannical government. We were to do that. It's great, but everything stops during revolution. Shipping stops. The economy stops. Money stops flowing. Goods and services stop. And so people have to either pull up their bootstraps and figure it out.
Yeah.
And so there's a price to pay, what I'm saying. So everybody now they want a revolution, but they don't want to lose all their entertainment and all their Amazon and Walmart too, and you can't have both. So I feel it coming down. I think we're reaching the end of an age. If we really want to get deep and philosophical, I think the end of an age is coming. And I want to be on the right side, and I want to encourage people too. I mean, get right with God and be emotionally prepared. I think 90% of it is emotional and mental, and then there's the 10% physical preparedness for who knows what could happen in the future.
God's about to bring the whole house down, ladies and gentlemen. These bunch of sex trafficking mongrels are about to be exposed. These bunch of pedophiles in Hollywood are going to be exposed for who they are. I don't care what you think about fraudulent Sleepy Joe. He's a sex trafficking, demon-possessed mongrel. He's of the left. He ain't no better than the Pope and Oprah Winfrey and Tom Hanks and the rest of that wicked crowd. God is going to bring the whole house down. I said he's going to bring the whole house down.
What in tarnation? What in tarnation? What in tarnation? I don't know what happened there, Neil. I do apologize.
Oh,
a lot of
man.
accidents happening here tonight, everybody. That will bring.
What
I swear to you,
tarnation? You just got locked. You got
what in
locked.
Sam
man.
Hill? What in Sam Hill here? Final thoughts brought to you by Give, Send, Go. All you have to do is give a little to get a lot. Go to GiveSendGo.com. Real Deal Go. Make these broadcasts epic, spectacular. Because what in tarnation are we going to do without them? Final thoughts here. Well, Neil Bishop and Matthew Millan are hard acts to follow, but I'm going to do my best because Greg Locke is even a harder act to follow. Well, as we finish the Zionists versus the West season finale here, I certainly learned a lot. I learned just a heck of a lot, that when people want to get right with God, as you heard others say, well, it doesn't necessarily mean getting right with pastors like Greg Locke, it doesn't right with the Yosemite Sams of the pulpit, but it means getting right with your brotherly man and fellow man and sisters and loved ones and a higher being, if that's what's important to you, because the lower beings, which are simply the hierarchies of society currently, are trying to dictate the future by erasing the past. And we can't let them do that, because this go around, we can't let the Victorians write history. And when a very, very archaic fascist government takes over society, well, like JFK said, we have a right and duty to rid that from our livelihoods and our society and our country, for that fact. And to quote John Lennon, if you say you want a revolution, we can count me out, in. But just whatever you do, don't start the revolution without me. And that's my final thought. I want to thank Matt Millan and his incredible inputs here tonight, and as well as Neil Bishop, who you can catch Neil, what is it, Monday, Wednesday, Friday?
I don't even know anymore.
You can catch Neil on
Catch
Happy
me
Days.
here. You can catch me here. Yeah, catch me on Happy. Catch me on Facebook. Just my name, Neil Bishop. Catch me on Facebook.
You can also catch him on ChristianMingle.com. I believe he's there, and you can see
Don't
Matt
tell
Millan.
my wife. Don't tell my wife.
And Farmers Only.
You catch Matt Millan on. He's going to be on. Catch both of these guys on our year in review coming up here for Real Deal Media. Matt did an incredible piece on the 1995 incredible year with the Smashing Pumpkins and everything. So we're going to knock out another critical musical piece before the year ends. So anyways, so for Matthew Millan and for Neil Bishop, I'm Dean Ryan saying thank you, everybody out there around the world, for sharing a bit of this shadow band night with us. Until next time, always remember to stay tuned and stay awake, and I'll see everybody soon. Good night.